Nigel Farage is back, and this time he's aiming for the biggest political shake-up in modern British history. Reform UK is on the rise, and both Labour and the Conservatives are terrified. Polling numbers show the once fringe party overtaking the Tories and even challenging Labour in key areas. But what's behind this sudden and shocking shift? According to Reform UK insiders, there's one Brexit victory that no one is talking about, and they believe it could be the key to catapulting Farage straight into number 10 Downing Street. And here's the kicker. This victory isn't just about trade deals or red tape. It's about something far bigger. It's about holding British politicians accountable in a way that was never possible under EU rule. Before we get into it, check out this clip of Vince Cable admitting that Brexiteers may have won the battle, but could be losing the war.
You could argue, in the language of the Brexit campaign, the Remainers are in charge now. Sir Keir Starmer as PM. Oliver Robbins, for example, he's at the Foreign Office. He was the Brexit negotiator. I mean, the Brexiteers kind of won the battle and then left the field, didn't they? It seems.
Well, they won the battle, but are losing the war. If we only use those metaphors, the argument about Britain's role in the world is still totally unclear, and the Brexiteers have never given a clear sense of direction. And I think this has got through to the public, who feel that sort of Britain is lost and is now in a weaker position.
Yeah, and I wonder whether how that might. I mean, the way that is reversed is if we go back into the supranational state. I mean, that's quite depressing, I think. I mean, there's an opportunity here as the world's fifth or sixth biggest economy to be on its own. But you think is that impossible? Do you think, in the way
we need to be careful with this fifth, sixth biggest economy?
How big are we now? You know.
Well, if you're looking at it in purchasing power terms, which is the way economists look at it, the World Bank, the IMF, well, I think we're now number 9.
Right.
We've got to be realistic. You know, we've been overtaken by Indonesia, let alone China and India.
And they're all independent countries, aren't they?
They are.
Outside of a trading bloc.
I favour a kind of pragmatic relationship with the European Union. I'm not in favour of a superstate. I think you do need a high level of decentralisation to make big entities work properly.
Yeah.
But within the European Union, there's plenty of scope for...
And that, folks, is exactly why Farage and his inner circle disagree completely, because according to them, the war is only just beginning. Reform UK is making a bold claim. Brexit didn't fail. The Conservative government failed Brexit. 5 years after leaving the EU, the UK was supposed to be thriving, independent, free of Brussels bureaucracy. Instead, immigration has skyrocketed, the economy is struggling, and British politicians have been more unaccountable than ever before. That's where Reform UK's strategy comes in. Gawain Towler, a long-time ally of Farage and the party's former communications chief, explains why this moment is so crucial. For the first time since we joined the EU, we actually have the ability to hold our politicians to account. They can no longer hide behind Brussels. Every failure, every betrayal, it all falls squarely on Westminster now. And that, right there, is the rarely discussed Brexit victory that Reform UK sees as their ticket to power. With Britain no longer shackled by EU laws, Westminster politicians can't pass the buck anymore. They can't say, our hands are tied by Brussels. They own every single decision they make. And what have they done with that power? Allowed 1 million migrants to enter Britain in a single year. Failed to remove 4,000 pieces of EU law that could have freed businesses from regulation. Pushed through a tax and spend agenda that has left businesses and working people worse off. The public is furious, and Reform UK knows it. That's why Nigel Farage has seized the moment, pushing his party as the only real alternative to the two-party system. And the numbers are proving him right. According to Find Out Now polling, Reform UK has almost doubled in support since last July, won over a fifth of 2024 Conservative voters. Attracted nearly half of non-voters who now say they'd turn out for an election. And here's the real kicker. Reform's voter base is more motivated than any other parties. They're not just filling out surveys. They're ready to vote, campaign and fight for real change. Richard Tice, Reform UK's deputy leader, is making it clear that neither Sunak nor Starmer can stop them. The Conservatives and Labour have failed the British public. Brexit wasn't the problem. Westminster was. And now, the British people see it clearly. The two-party system is crumbling, and Reform UK is stepping in to fill the void. Farage isn't just talking, he's going after the Conservative strongholds directly. In Essex, where Tory leadership hopeful Kemi Badenoch holds her seat, he delivered a scathing speech to supporters, making it clear that Reform is gunning for the Tories. We now have 490 paid-up members and 460 registered supporters in this constituency alone, and we're just getting started. Farage picked this location deliberately to show the Tories that no seat is safe anymore, and it's not just words, the polling backs it up. 7 polls in the last week have shown Reform UK UK ahead of the Conservatives, and one poll even placed them in front of Labour. This isn't just a protest vote. This is a political revolution. Rupert Lowe, Reform UK MP, has called his party Britain's last chance at a sensible government. And when you hear what he says about Britain's current political state, it's hard to argue. The Tories and Labour, the Uni Party, have let Britain down time and time again. It started under Blair, it got worse under Cameron, and it's only continued under Sunak and Starmer. And he's not stopping there. He's pointing directly at Cameron for embedding horrific laws that led to today's crisis, particularly on immigration. The Human Rights Act, the Equalities Act, they started the legal framework for all of this. Cameron has blood on his hands. The British public have been let down, and now they're demanding change. And that demand for change is only growing. Look at what's happening with migration. 130,000 young men crossing the Channel illegally. Net migration hitting 1 million a year. British taxpayers footing the bill for an out-of-control system. Farage isn't mincing words about what's happening. The people weren't betrayed by Brexit. They were betrayed by a Conservative government elected on the back of Brexit with considerable help from myself, who never believed in it, never intended to deliver lower numbers, and thought they could get away with it. Well, folks, I'm back, and they won't get away with it. And this is exactly why the establishment is panicking. The Tories are desperately trying to reframe the narrative, claiming Brexit has given the UK control of its laws and the ability to reform burdensome EU policies, but Reform UK's response? Then why haven't you done it? Why is Britain still shackled by EU regulations? Why are taxes still through the roof? Why has nothing changed since Brexit? That's why voters are flocking to Reform UK, because for the first time in decades there's a real alternative. Even critics who once dismissed Farage as a fringe figure are starting to acknowledge the reality. He's the best political communicator in Britain. He connects with voters in a way that no other leader does. And as Reform UK's Gawain Towler put it, it's not just a barn door anymore. It's the whole barn. And soon, it'll be the whole village. If these numbers hold, and if Reform UK continues its rapid rise, then Farage's dream of walking into number 10 might not be so far-fetched after all. The question is, can the establishment stop him? Or is Britain about to see its biggest political shake-up in over a century? What do you think? Can Nigel Farage really take Reform UK to power? Is the two-party system finished? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and if you want more hard-hitting analysis on the biggest political shake-ups, hit that subscribe button and stay tuned. We're just getting started.